When you think of a Sith Lord, what do you see? A shadowy figure in a black robe, a crimson lightsaber, maybe some crackling lightning from their fingertips. That's the image the galaxy wants you to have. It's the safe version, the manageable version, but it's a lie. Because out there, in the darkest corners of history, there are stories of Sith who went far beyond that. Beings who didn't just use the dark side for power or conquest. They used it to tear holes in the fabric of reality. They treated the fundamental laws of the universe, life, death, time, and space, as mere suggestions. These weren't just Sith Lords. They were cosmic horrors. And today, we're unsealing the archives to count down the 7 Sith so powerful, they literally broke the Force. Coming in at number 7 is the man who broke the Sith to save them, Darth Bane. For thousands of years, the Sith were a sprawling empire of warriors, constantly at each other's throats. They were powerful, yes, but they were diluted, weakened by their own greed and ambition. Bane saw this. He saw that the dark side, when shared among thousands, was a shallow puddle. But if concentrated into just 2, it could become a bottomless ocean. So he orchestrated the destruction of the entire Sith Order. He tricked them into unleashing a thought bomb, a ritual that annihilated every Force-sensitive being in the area, Jedi and Sith alike. And from the ashes, he emerged alone. He then created the rule of 2. One master to embody the power, one apprentice to crave it. It was a brutal, 1,000-year-long eugenics program for the dark side. Each generation, the apprentice would have to kill the master to prove their superiority, ensuring the Sith became stronger with every betrayal. Bane didn't just create a new rule. He broke the very nature of the Sith and reforged them into a patient, generational virus, designed to one day infect and consume the entire galaxy. At number 6, we go back to the golden age of the Sith Empire, to a lord whose power was so immense, it refused to die with his body. Marka Ragnos. In life, he was one of the most powerful duelists and sorcerers of his time, ruling over the Sith for a century. But his true, reality-breaking power came after his death. His spirit was so saturated with the dark side that it clung to his tomb, a malevolent ghost haunting the Valley of the Dark Lords. For thousands of years, his spirit lingered. It wasn't just a memory. It was an active participant in galactic events. He could appear before aspiring Sith, testing their worthiness. He could possess others, using their bodies as puppets to carry out his will. He could empower artifacts with his dark energy. Marka Ragnos broke the fundamental rule that death is the end. His hatred was so potent, it became a permanent stain on the Force, an echo that could still kill, corrupt, and crown new Dark Lords millennia after his heart stopped beating. For our number 5 spot, we have the Sith Lord, who looked at the line between life and death and decided to erase it. Darth Plagueis the Wise. You've heard the tragedy, but the Opera House story barely scratches the surface. Plagueis wasn't interested in galactic conquest or fancy titles. He saw those as trivial. His obsession was singular and absolute: immortality. He dedicated his entire life to studying the very building blocks of existence, the midi-chlorians. He learned to manipulate them, to influence them. He could use the Force to heal, to regenerate, and most terrifyingly, to create life from nothing. He was a biological god, playing with the source code of the universe. The legends say his experiments were so profound, so unnatural, that the Force itself recoiled and conceived Anakin Skywalker to restore balance. Plagueis broke the most sacred law of nature. He sought to make death irrelevant, and in his arrogance, he may have accidentally created the very instrument of his order's destruction. At number 4 is the master of that tragedy, the man who learned from Plagueis' ambition and perfected it into a galaxy-spanning weapon, Darth Sidious, Palpatine. We know his power, the lightning that could turn a man to ash, the political genius that dismantled a republic from the inside. But his true force-breaking power was far more subtle and insidious. For decades, Sidious projected a shroud of dark side energy over the entire galaxy. It was a psychic fog so thick that it blinded the Jedi Order. They couldn't use their foresight. They couldn't sense the growing darkness right under their noses. He single-handedly deafened his enemies to the will of the Force. And like his master, he also broke death. Through a technique called essence transfer, he could move his spirit from a dying body into a fresh clone, ensuring his reign could be, quite literally, eternal. He didn't just conquer the galaxy. He poisoned its spiritual energy and turned immortality into a contingency plan. Now, we leave the realm of men and enter the realm of monsters. At number 3 is a being who was no longer a man, but a wound. Darth Nihilus. During the Mandalorian Wars, he was a soldier who survived the activation of a superweapon on the planet Malachor V. But survived isn't the right word. The weapon didn't just kill, it created an echo in the Force, and that echo was Nihilus. He was transformed into a living black hole of the dark side. He was defined by a single, all-consuming emotion: hunger. But he didn't hunger for food. He hungered for the Force itself. To sustain his fractured existence, he had to drain the life force from entire planets. Imagine being on a world like Qatar, a colony of powerful Jedi. One moment, you are surrounded by life. The next, a shadow falls over the planet, and there is only silence. Every living thing, from the strongest Jedi Master to the smallest insect, turned to dust. Nihilus was a walking extinction event. He didn't just use the dark side, he was a fundamental tear in the fabric of the Force, a void that spoke a single word: hunger. But what could be worse than a walking wound? How about a being who creates those wounds on purpose? For our number 2 spot, we have the most successful Sith Lord of all time, an ancient being born Tenebrae, who would later be known as Darth Vitiate, and then Valkorion, the Immortal Emperor. While Nihilus was an accident, Vitiate was a predator. As a young man, he subjugated his entire home planet. Then, he gathered thousands of the most powerful Sith Lords and promised them a ritual that would grant them ultimate power. It was a lie. The ritual wasn't for them, it was for him. He used their combined strength to drain every living thing on the planet, every man, woman, child, plant, and animal, and absorbed it all into himself. The planet, Nathema, was left as a silent void in the Force, a cosmic scar from which no life could ever grow again. And Vitiate? He became truly immortal. For over 1,300 years, he ruled his own empire, hopping from body to body, orchestrating galactic events from the shadows. He didn't just cheat death, he consumed worlds to fuel his eternal life. He was a parasite on a galactic scale. But there is one being whose power is so absolute, so terrifying, that it transcends even the concept of Sith. A being who represents the ultimate horrifying destination of the dark side's path. Our number 1 spot goes to Abeloth, the bringer of chaos. She wasn't born a Sith. Millennia ago, she was a mortal woman, a servant to the godlike Mortis Ones. Desperate to be loved and to become a god like them, she committed an unforgivable act. She drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge. The raw cosmic energy twisted her, corrupted her, and transformed her into a being of pure chaos and hunger. She became so powerful that her father and son had to join forces to imprison her within a cluster of black holes. Abeloth didn't just break the Force, she became a cosmic imbalance. She could be in multiple places at once, controlling the minds of entire populations across the galaxy. She could warp reality, reshape planets, and her very presence caused the Force to go mad. She was less of a person and more of a sentient, malevolent force of nature. She is what happens when the ambition of the Sith is taken to its absolute logical conclusion. A power so great, it can only be imprisoned, never truly destroyed. So when you think of the Sith, don't just see the red lightsaber. See the architect who rewrote the rules of power. See the ghost who refused to die. See the men who became gods, and the gods who became monsters. The dark side is more than a path to power. It's a promise that you can break the rules. And these 7 are the terrifying proof of what happens when you succeed.